Michael Carneal was 14 years old when he opened fire on a group praying in the West Paducah school. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison with the option for parole after 25 years.
Michael Carneal is currently serving 27 years of a life sentence. On December 1st, 1997, then 14-year-old Michael Carneal opened fire on a prayer group at Heath High School near Paducah, Kentucky, killing 3 of his fellow students and injuring another 5.
It could be any worse than what happened at Heath High School.
3 students are dead, 5 others hit by bullets, and now McCracken County parents are pleading with educators and authorities to do something to avoid another massacre in the future. Randy Wright spoke with the mother of Jessica James just minutes after Mrs. James found out her daughter was dead.
She came to me and said, Randy, how in the world could we allow something like this to happen at our schools? Please do something to keep this from ever happening again.
Educators are looking at all options: security guards, ID badges, see-through backpacks, or metal detectors. But even with that, law enforcement says we don't live in a bulletproof society.
We can put up all the fences in the world, all the metal detectors, and 20 policemen in this place will do, and we still have an incident tomorrow.
With over 25 years of his sentence served, Carneal, who is now 40 years old, sought parole in one of the first known instances of a school shooter facing the possibility of leaving prison. At the time of the tragedy, Carneal told reporters that he could not give a single explanation for his crimes, and that contributing factors included a mistaken belief of his that his parents did not love him, taunting from classmates, and false claims he was gay. He stated that he did not know who he was aiming at until he read the names in the paper. Weeks before the incident, Carneal stole a .38 caliber handgun from his parents' room and attempted to sell it. A student took the gun and threatened to tell police if Carneal did not give it to him. Carneal had told students that something big is going to happen on Monday, but no one took him seriously. In the weeks before the shooting, Carneal stole several firearms from both his home and neighbors' homes. According to reports, Carneal had been bullied by other students and had anxiety, depression, and severe paranoia. His paranoia was manifested in habits such as covering up vents and windows while in bathrooms, because he believed that he was being watched. In October of 1998, a plea of guilty from Michael Carneal was accepted due to his mental illness. Under a plea arrangement, the judge agreed to accept the pleas on condition that Carneal would receive a life sentence with the possibility of parole in 25 years. According to prosecutors, the plea allows Carneal to receive mental health treatment during imprisonment as long as this is necessary for him or until he is released. Carneal was transported to the Kentucky State Reformatory in LaGrange when he turned 18, where he now remains. In 2007, Carneal filed an appeal claiming that he was too mentally ill to plead guilty to the shooting at Heath High School. He asked the Kentucky Supreme Court for a retrial. Prosecutors appealed, and the Kentucky Supreme Court rejected his request. In 2012, he attempted to withdraw his plea, claiming he was mentally ill at the time he made it. Later in that same year, the court denied his request, stating that he should have acted sooner. He was originally scheduled to be eligible for parole on November 16th of 2022. However, his hearing was rescheduled and began on September 19th of 2022. The following is the recording of his parole hearing.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in the matter of Michael Carneal, inmate number 151127. Mr. Carneal is currently serving a life sentence for the crime of murder, violent crime, 3 counts, criminal attempt to commit murder, 5 counts, and burglary first degree. As of today, Mr. Carneal has served approximately 24 years and 9 months. The board will meet with Mr. Carneal tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. At the time of the hearing, myself and Mr. Brock, who's also on camera, that will conduct today's victims hearing as well as tomorrow's offender hearing. We have 3 options available to us. We have the option to parole Mr. Carneal. We do have the option to defer him as well. Between the 2 board members, the panel of 2, we only have the authority to defer Mr. Carneal a period of up to 60 months. If the two of us cannot agree, it's not a unanimous decision on what to do with Mr. Carneal, then we will refer him back to the full board. And the full board can then defer Mr. Carneal up to 10 or 120 months, or we can serve him out. Those are our options for Mr. Carneal. Today is our victims hearing. We thank you all for joining us today for the open hearing. It is not the intent of the parole board to cause any trauma or to re-traumatize you in any manner. I know that it has been difficult to relive this experience leading up to today's hearing. We would like for you to share with us whatever it is that you would like for us to consider. It is a significant part of the parole hearing process. So whatever information you would like to share with us, your thoughts and feelings on the crime itself, what you have experienced since the crime has occurred, and your idea as to what you would like the parole board's decision to be. If for those who are speaking, if you would like us to ask questions of Mr. Carneal, we can also do that. We will not share with him that those specific questions come from you specifically, but we will word them in a way that the information comes from the board. So if you would like us to ask him anything, we can do that as well. Just for a matter of housekeeping, I will announce the order to which everyone will speak. If I could ask that everyone be mindful of ones that are speaking, since this is video conference, so that we can hear the information that everyone is providing. If everyone would keep their cameras off and to keep their microphones on mute so that we can hear this important information. Again, thank you for sharing with us today. We appreciate the time that you have taken out of your day to share with us. And again, this is a vital part of the parole hearing process. So we want to hear and consider your input. So that I don't belabor this, I will turn the hearing over to Gwen and Charles Hadley, and you all may turn on your cameras and your microphone and you can speak with us at this time. These are the parents of Nicole Hadley, who was what I'll refer to as victim number 1. And I will just label the victims as we go along. Mr. and Mrs. Hadley, are you all on? If you will turn on your volume, your microphone is muted. You're still on mute.
Okay, we should be good now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Again, share with us as much as you would like for us to know and consider as it pertains to your loved one, Nicole Hadley.
Okay. Hi, my name is Chuck Hadley. I'm the father of Nicole Hadley, who was killed by Michael Carneal when he shot her in the forehead at Heath High School.
Nobody's at others. Oh, it's the Hadley.
As I write the statement, I am reminded what we have missed since her murder on December 1st, 1997. We have missed Nicole's high school graduation, her college graduation, a wedding, her kids, our grandkids, many birthdays and holidays together. Everything's gone in an instant, lost forever. We miss her smile, funny humor, and wonderful hugs. Our family lives have been impacted by the moment in 1997. The memories that we have can never be replaced. We cannot go through our lives without reminders of what we are missing from our daughters being murdered. The murderer has tried to get out of prison in 2007 and 2012. Every time it has caused us pain remembering that day in December, as it is today with this hearing. He has never shown remorse or taken responsibility for what he's done. Not only did he kill Nicole, but he also killed Casey and Jessica and tried to kill 5 more students. He had enough weapons and ammunition to hurt and kill several more. I believe the murderer should never be let out of prison and should serve the remainder of his life sentence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley.
Good morning. I'd just like to say thank you to the board for listening to the victim impact statements. And Gwen Hadley, mother of Nicole Hadley, who was shot and killed by Michael Carneal. I believe he should have to serve out a sentence that he was sentenced to. We, the families, the survivors, and people that were at the school and the whole community were given a life sentence by the shooter and didn't have the opportunity to get a second chance, a reduced sentence, and to be released from this sentence. I personally won't get to see Nicole reach her goals, get married, have kids, and be an aunt. We as a family miss her at all family events. Nicole will always be missed. I haven't been able to hug Nicole or see her since December 1st of 97. This past June, my granddaughter, Charlie Nicole, was sitting in my lap crying because she won't ever get to see her Aunt Nicola, who she's named after. And she really wants to meet her. Even at 4 years old, Charlie is affected greatly by the life sentence the shooter has given us. I have made the choice not to be angry and to find joy in life, but I still really miss my daughter. And I don't like that I don't get to see her. If the shooter is released, what happens when he doesn't take his meds? Who's he going to hurt or kill next? The community and the families don't deserve to be sentenced even harsher to living in fear. This shooter needs to stay where he is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hadley. Again, we thank you for sharing with us today. It is not the intent of the parole board to have you re-traumatized in any way. So we thank you for sharing your heart with us, and we'll keep you in our thoughts and minds as we make our decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have Ms. Christina Elgood?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Okay, Ms. Elgood, you are free to speak.
My name is Christina Hadley Elligood. I was a 15-year-old sophomore at Heath High School on December 1st, 1997. My sister Nicole was a 14-year-old freshman. I survived the shooting, but Nicole did not. Michael Carneal made the decision to end Nicole's life on December 1st, 1997. Nicole was a kind, caring, and funny girl who was also a friend of Michael's. I know you have a very hard decision to make and have a lot of factors to think about and review. I understand that you are not only looking at how the shooting changed my life, but the lives of so many other people. But you also have to look at the shooter and what he has done the last almost 25 years. I do understand that the shooter was 14 at the time of the shooting. I understand that there is no way he could have understood what his actions would lead to, because at the age of 14, your brain is still developing, and he had no way of understanding what life is like outside of high school. I would like to share with you who Nicole was. Nicole was a very kind-hearted girl who was friends with everyone because she was so kind and funny. She had a special connection with people with disabilities. Nicole brought a smile to everyone she was around. She enjoyed jokes and making people laugh all the time. She was also extremely smart. Nicole was 6 foot tall and slender built. She already had plans on what she wanted to do with her life. She had plans to graduate high school as the valedictorian and go to UNC because she was a huge Michael Jordan fan. She wanted to become a physical therapist who worked with the WNBA, and during the off season, she wanted to run a camp for kids with special needs. Nicole was the top of her class when her life came to an end, so she could have easily completed high school and followed her dreams of helping others. Because of the choices that Michael Carneal made, Nicole was not able to live her dreams and change the lives of others in the way she wanted. Nicole was able to help so many people because my family was able to donate her organs. My family has been blessed to be able to share Nicole's donation story around the US and the world, which has led to many people signing up to donate their organs as well. Michael was not a stranger to Nicole or I. Nicole walked with Michael at their 8th grade graduation. Michael was not a kid who did not have friends, as he's led people to believe. Nicole did not agree with how Michael treated people and the things that he did, but because she was so kind-hearted, she was friends with him. When the Commonwealth was preparing for Michael's trial, which did not end up happening because he did accept a plea deal, the Commonwealth informed my parents that the trial would be based around the facts that Michael had asked to date Nicole and she had turned him down, which he was not happy about. Nicole was the first one shot. I believe that Michael knew what he was doing the day of the shooting. He brought 5 guns with him, enough ammo to shoot everyone in the school twice, and had 3 pairs of earplugs. He fired 8 shots and hit 8 different people, which in my eyes is a very difficult task. Over the last 25 years, I've had to learn how to deal with a lot, and most people will never understand what I've been through. From what I understand, I was the first sibling to survive a school shooting where I lost a sibling. I had no one to turn to who understood what I was going through. I had my world turned upside down because of the actions of Michael. Today, I'm asking that you deny parole for Michael Carneal. Nicole was given a life sentence. Michael pled to a life sentence, which I believe he should serve out. I believe that he should have to spend the rest of his life incarcerated. Nicole does not get a second chance. Why should he? I do ask that if you make the decision to grant parole, that you place very strict conditions on Michael. I ask that one of those conditions be that he not be allowed to have any type of contact with my family in any way. I also ask that he be monitored and have to let the victims know where he's living. For me, it's not fair for him to be able to roam around with freedom when we live in fear and where he might be. I would like to thank you for taking the time to allow me to speak, and I pray that you make the right decision or what you feel is the right decision tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Elgood. The board receives and duly notes your request. Thank you for sharing with us. Is Mr. Andrew Hadley on?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hadley, you are free to speak at this time.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. This is not an easy topic to discuss or an event to relive. None of us want to do that. But unfortunately, it's something that myself, my family, the people that survived the school shooting, and everybody else that was part of the community then has to relive every single day. It's not just about this parole hearing. It's about a much larger picture. We were sentenced to a life of pain and suffering on that day that we lost Nicole, Jessica, and Casey, and the 5 others that were shot. He committed murder 3 times. It was thought out. He knew what he was doing, tried to kill 5 others. And with that, to this day, I still don't understand why he even has the option of parole. We were not given justice with his sentence. I still try to come to terms with how he's even allowed to have that option. You know, I lost a sister, not just a sister, but she was somebody that pushed me at a young age. You know, I was 12, she was 14, but she was still my biggest competitor, whether it was academically or athletically. She always wanted to strive to push us to be our best. And we've been missing that every day since she was taken from us. We can't replace her. She'll never be replaced. We'll never forget her. I've personally dealt with anxiety, depression, and much other things since then, trying to cope with the fact that I'll never see her again. I'll never be able to touch her again or hear her, you know, talking me through things, pushing me to my limits. You know, I thought I was getting to the point of trying to move on. But every time my daughter, who I don't even know how it processes with her when I struggle with it, but she asks about Nicole regularly, especially before bed when we're looking at pictures, just asking when she'll get to meet her and how amazing was she, and she hopes that she gets to be something like her. which I still can't comprehend her that my daughter, who is now 5, is asking these questions, but I struggle with it, knowing that at some point I have to explain that to her, what happened and the possibility of that happening again. And I feel for everybody that was involved, not just the families that were affected by death, but the people that have physical wounds that are life lasting. I'm still at a loss for words on how to deal with it myself, and try to find ways to stay strong for everybody around myself and in the community. It affected us all in so many ways, and it's not going to stop. Him being released is a tragedy in itself. It's not fair for anybody that was involved on either side of it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Mr. Brock, do you have any questions or comments of the Nicole Hadley's family?
I do not, thank you.
Okay. Do we have Holland Home on?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. You are free to speak.
Thank you. This December will mark 25 years since December 1st, 1997. On that day, I was a 14-year-old child. I laid on the floor in the lobby of Heath High School, bled from the side of my head, and believed I was going to die. I said a prayer and readied myself to die. The bullet that struck my head left a wound down my scalp that required a dozen staples to put back together. Physically, I was lucky. I have often thought about what might have been if that bullet had struck me had just been a little bit closer. And while I still carry the scar in my hairline, the mental and emotional scars that I carry are much more profound. I did not cry for almost 1 year after the shooting, not until I woke up in tears with a nightmare of that day replaying. Almost 25 years later, I still have trouble being in crowds of people. I get agitated and scan for sources of danger and exit routes. I get anxious when I am seated in a restaurant with my back to the door. When a series of small fireworks or popping balloons approximates the deliberate patterns of the gunshots from that morning, I can feel the color drain from my face and panic. As an adult, I finally sought out therapy to address the post-traumatic stress disorder I developed as a result of the shooting. The treatment helped with the more acute stress responses, but every time there's another school shooting, I relive December 1st again. I have an intense response to news of other school shootings, and the days between Thanksgiving and December 1st are also difficult for me every year. What Michael did on December 1st wasn't limited to killing 3 people and wounding 5 others. What he did scarred an entire community. It's not an exaggeration to say that his actions victimized many of the children and adults living in Heath, West Paducah, McCracken County, and the entire region at that time. It was serious and awful, and the consequences continue to today. I'm turning 40 years old this December, but on December 1st, 1997, I was still a child. Everyone in the lobby of Heath High School that day, including Michael Carneal, was a child. It's taken me 25 years to fully appreciate how little I knew on that day, how much of life I had not lived, and how far from adult I was in my thinking and my capacity. I'm a different person today than I was on that day. I've gone on from that day to start a family and have a career. Something that I couldn't fathom as I lay on the floor bleeding in that lobby. Michael Carneal has spent almost 2/3 of his life incarcerated for his actions as a child. He's now an adult in prison serving time for the actions of a child. I have to think that after 25 years, he is a different person than he was that day, as we are all different people today than we were 25 years ago. My oldest child turned 10 this year. and I can't imagine holding her to the standard of an adult. When I think of Michael and what he did on December 1st, 1997, I can't weigh the sum total of his life by the worst actions of his life on the worst day of my life. When I think of Michael Carneal, I think of the child I rode the bus with every day. I think of the child I shared a lunch table with in 3rd grade. I think of what he could have become if on that day he had it somewhere in him to make a different choice or take a different path. I also think of the 3 girls who didn't have a choice that day, and I grieve for them. Whatever the outcome of the hearing tomorrow, it won't bring back the lives of Casey, Jessica, and Nicole. Nothing can. The loss of the opportunity for them to grow and become different people, to build families, and to share their own unique talents and gifts with the world is cruel. But no amount of punishment can undo that loss. If the board were to grant parole for Michael Carneal, I understand it wouldn't be a walk out of the doors with no strings attached. It will be incredibly difficult for someone who has been incarcerated for most of his life. If granted parole, there are numerous conditions he would have to meet to remain out of prison, and any mistake or deviation could see him return, as he will spend the rest of his life on supervised parole. But if the mental health experts think he can be successful on the outside, he should get that chance. This is a difficult position for me to take. It's far easier in our society to act out of anger and retribution than empathy. And Michael Carneal has done much to cause this justifiable anger. I feel that anger too. But when I feel that anger, I think about the 14-year-old boy who acted that day, and I think of my own children. And I think the man that boy became should get the chance to try to do and be better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holm. We appreciate you again sharing with us today, and hope that this hasn't caused any undue stress as it pertains to this incident that occurred all those years ago. So thank you again for sharing with us. Mr. Brock, do you have any questions of Mr. Holm or comments?
I do not. I too want to thank you, Mr. Holm, for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you both.
Next, we have Ms. Smith. Do we have Missy Smith on?
We're trying. All right. Are you guys able to hear and see me?
Yes, you are free to speak.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Missy Jenkins Smith. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my testimony today. I know you have a difficult decision, and I hope that what I say will make your decision easier. On December the 1st, 1997, Michael Carneal shot and killed 3 of my friends and injured 5. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years. Also on December the 1st, 1997, Michael sentenced me to life in a wheelchair without the possibility of parole, ever. I know you'll hear a lot of testimony today regarding what Michael did to us and our close-knit community. I could speak for hours about what my life has been like every minute of every day for the last quarter century without the use of my legs. From the way I get out of bed in the morning, to the shower, to reaching cabinets in my kitchen, to getting in and out of my car, to the limited seating in a public area, to the embarrassment of special accommodations that have to be made wherever I go, to having to look up at anyone to speak to me or to speak to. I can't take a hike in the woods with my boys. I often can't easily get to them if they need my help. I won't be able to stand and dance with them at their weddings. When Michael started to work towards his appeal of his plea, trying to change his plea from guilty but mentally ill to not guilty for reason of insanity, he was really focusing on his mental health as the reason he chose to bring a gun to school and open fire on his classmates. I have a video of one of the last interviews he did, which was on the Today Show nightly news, where he specifically says that his mental illness made him do what he did. He was still denied multiple times at the attempt to change his plea. Before he began the attempts for the appeals, I visited him in July of 2007 at the LaGrange Penitentiary. Before I spoke with him, I was told by multiple staff that he had been taking medication that seemed to be having a positive effect on him and was doing the best he has ever been doing since he had been in their care. They also told me that while talking to me and Mandy, he may need a few pauses or some breaks during our conversation. But Mandy and I talked to him for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours actually, and he didn't need a break at all. He also shared with me in the beginning of our meeting that he had a mental illness, It was the reason he chose to bring a gun to school and open fire on his classmates. Now, I want you to consider how long it has been that he's been taken care of by others, from the age of 14 years old to his present age of 39. He hasn't had the responsibility to take care of himself and has been cared for the past 25 years. If he was responsible to continue taking care of himself back then at the age of 14, he would have had only 4 more years to be considered an adult to learn to take care of himself. Instead, he hasn't been responsible for himself all that time. How can anyone say with confidence he could do that for the rest of his life at the age of 39? Then who will be for him? His parents were forever. She hasn't had to focus on taking care of him, and she currently has a family of her own and focus that she has to focus on. What if stressors in this new world began to weigh on him? Having trouble finding a job after jail time for murder and attempted murder, running into people who know who he is and what he did. How sure are we that he can be able to handle this new world that's changed around him? What if these problems affect him so much emotionally that he chooses not to take his medication? What if it affects him emotionally enough that his meds aren't helping anymore? There are too many what ifs to assume that he could be responsible enough to take care of himself and to not let his mental illness cause him to harm anyone again. Continuing his life in prison is the only way his victims can feel comfortable and safe without being haunted by the what ifs. After my visit with Michael in LaGrange, I heard news on something he was a part of that was very unsettling. Someone who owned a website that sold items for people who considered themselves serial killers. And there were things of Michael's on this for sale. Those items were hand tracings, his prison number, letters, poems that he had written. The website also featured an interview with him. Questions like, what is your favorite color? What's your favorite ice cream flavor? But because of Son of Sam laws, they say that you can't profit or that he can't profit off his crime. But according to one of the website owners, they also they traded Michael things like magazines for letters in his handwriting. Yes, Michael was profiting from this. With Michael's Murderabilia is what it's called, including one with a Polaroid photo of him and his parents that you could buy right now for $199. And another with a letter he wrote as recently as 2019, sold for $35. These things wouldn't be on here if he didn't give them permission. And the last things I mentioned are new things. When he did this, he was about 29, 30 years old. He was considered an adult then, but still considered himself a serial killer. Stealing the innocence of so many people who would never get that back. What scares me the most is that he participated in something that knew and labeled him as serial killer. What he has considered himself before, do you think you feel comfortable with him around those you love? It won't just affect his victims from the past. He now has the potential to affect other people too. Maybe even you and your family. That morning of the shooting, the only person who made the decision to bring a gun to school was Michael Carneal. His decision determined the future of everyone who didn't make the decision. He had no choice but to let Michael Carneal, or we had no choice but to let Michael Carneal make that decision and determine our future. Michael's consequence for killing 3 girls and physically injuring 5 others for the rest of their lives was 25 years to life. He has a chance at 39 years old to be able to leave this prison that he's given an attempt and be given an attempt at a normal life. Those that were forced to bear the consequences of Michael's decision are sentenced to life without parole. 3 innocent girls, Jessica, Casey, and Nicole, will never have a chance to attempt a normal life. Their loved ones will never get to experience life with them again, but only left with the thoughts of what could have been. They will forever be a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 15-year-old, allowed only 1 full decade of life, a consequence of Michael's choice. I've been sentenced to life without the possibility of parole after living the consequence of Michael Carneal's decision to not be able to walk. I will continue to serve out that consequence that Michael's decision for me will be my entire life. My life won't get simpler. I'm forced to continue with every day getting harder and harder as the years pass during my life sentence. The future and the fear of it haunts me. I don't know what my life will be like in 20 years. I'm only 40 and I'm already having trouble. And I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old to take care of, but they're taking care of me instead. There are others who were left with a small scar, but to them, it feels like it covers their entire body. That scar is a constant reminder of the consequences they received from Michael Carneal. Michael made that decision for them. They are Kelly, Shelley, Holland, and Craig. Others who were sentenced for life by Michael Carneal, who witnessed what Michael did on December the 1st, 1997. It replays in their minds over and over again for the past 25 years. That memory, that consequence will be with them for the rest of their lives. They will never get parole from that, from the fear, never get parole from the fear of PTSD and being forced to watch Michael's decision to attempt to murder. Others who were sentenced by Michael are family members of students and the members of the surrounding community. Those people all lost a sense of innocence. They had to constantly fear of what happened to them. Others, such as teachers who were forced to find the strength to take on the roles of nurses, doctors, police officers, parents of their students. No one going to college has a class to prepare them for that. Heath High School's principal, Mr. Bill Bond, witnessed the aftermath of Michael's decision that morning. Without a resource officer at the school, Mr. Bond was forced to gather as much courage as possible to walk over to this teenager who, now a murderer, was holding armed with a weapon, and reprimand him for his actions, a job he never dreamed he would have to do. I know he is forever suffering from what he had to be forced to deal with. Even people were expected to perform those roles, nurses, paramedics, police officers, counselors, were all forced to handle the concept of Michael Carneal. I met paramedics who were traumatized by what they saw. You could see in their eyes. I also met a nurse who became an alcoholic and couldn't be a nurse again. That day after the shooting, the custodians had to clean up that scene that was covered in blood and vomit. I ran into a Heath's former custodian who was forced to clean up what Michael did that morning. I was speaking at the school district he worked for. but was now working at the board office. He couldn't listen to me speak and share my story. I could see the hurt and trauma in his eyes that will never leave him for the rest of his life. So many lives were affected by Michael Carneal's decision to bring a gun to school on December the 1st, 1997, and open fire on students praying in a school's lobby before school began. Out of everyone I mentioned, there was only one person who can be free of the consequences of that day, the person who ultimately made this decision on his own, sentencing countless people to a lifelong sentence, a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. That person is Michael Carneal. And somehow Michael has that possibility to be free of all consequences. It doesn't make sense, and there are too many what ifs to risk it. Please remember all of us still suffering. We will all never forget what happened and what we witnessed Michael Carneal do on December the 1st, 1997. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Again, it almost seems insensitive of the board to say that we are hoping that this hasn't caused any undue trauma or stress for you to have to relive this at this moment, because realistically, we know that you have experienced all of that in the last 25 years, and especially leading up to this crime. Again, we want you to know how important of a piece this is to the parole hearing process. So we thank you for showing your strength today and sharing with the board your thoughts and feelings as it pertains to the parole hearing of Michael Carneal. At this time, I'll see if my colleague, Mr. Larry Brock, has questions or comments to add.
Is Miss Smith still there? I don't see her.
She's still there.
Is she still there?
You're back on. I'm sorry, are you there?
Okay, you're still there, Miss Smith, right?
Yes, I'm here, yes.
Oh, okay. No, I just wanted to say thank you for talking to us, and I want you to know that we have read the impact statement you submitted, and we recognize that you didn't mention all the challenges that you have in life in this hearing, but we want you to know that we are aware of those of what you've been through. So thank you for that statement, and thank you for talking.
I really appreciate it. I hope the wheelchair reminds everybody that everybody's still suffering. It's for the girls, it's for the people who saw this, and it's for me that has to continue this for the rest of our lives. So thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have, Ms. Jones.
Thank you. We also have Commonwealth's attorney, Mr. Dan Boaz on. Mr. Boaz, would you like to speak?
All right, Mr. Bose is coming up.
Okay.
Let's go up in front of the camera.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I was the county attorney when this occurred back in 1997, and now I'm acting as the Commonwealth's attorney for the last 10, 11 years. What Mr. Carneal did on the morning of December 1st, 1997, obviously profoundly affected all of the people who were at Heath High School that morning. It profoundly affected the entire community. It shook us to the core, to put it mildly. He was a 14-year-old person when he chose to gun down his classmates. As a result of that, the law treated him as an adult, and it continues to treat people who act that way as an adult if they qualify, and Mr. Carneal certainly qualified to be treated as an adult. We are asking that he continue to be treated as an adult and that he pay for the consequences of his action, that he be denied parole. As Missy just talked about, she and the other people that were at Heath High School that day have been sentenced to life without parole as a result of what he did. We think that equity and justice demands that he suffer the same consequence and that he be denied parole, and he should serve out the sentence. Thank you for asking me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Boaz. As always, the board appreciates any time that the Commonwealth's attorney can share with us in the victim's hearing. So we appreciate the support that you offer to the victims and appreciate you sharing with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
To the parents of Nicole Hadley, her siblings, Mr. Holm and Ms. Smith, do you have any questions of the board?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there aren't any other questions, tomorrow we will meet with Mr. Carneal via video conference for his parole eligibility hearing. That hearing will begin at 9 a.m. Eastern time. Once that hearing is conducted, the board will either have a decision at the conclusion of that hearing, or if we are unable to reach a unanimous decision, then that information will be taken back to the full board, who convenes the following Monday at 8:30 a.m. and a decision will be made at that time. Again, to the family and the victims of Mr. Carneal, we cannot imagine the pain that you all have endured since this crime occurred. The board values the information that you have shared with us today, and we ask only that you trust the board to make the right decision. This concludes the hearing today, the victim's hearing for Michael Carneal. And DOC number for the record, please.
Michael Carneal, 151127.
Thank you, Mr. Carneal. I am Ms. Jones. My colleague, Mr. Brock, is also on camera. We will be conducting your parole eligibility hearing today. Mr. Carneal, this is your first hearing?
Yes.
All right. Today, sir, we will discuss the crimes of which you're serving your sentence for. We will discuss the circumstances around those crimes, any criminal history that you had prior to those crimes or since being incarcerated. Also, since you have been incarcerated, we will discuss any programs you have completed, programs you're currently enrolled in or on the wait list for, or programs you've been discharged or terminated from. And since this is an opportunity of parole today for you, sir, we will discuss your future plans, such as where you would live, who you would live with, and where you would work. Mr. Carneal, do you understand all of those things, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Carneal, our record reflects you are 39 years old. You're housed there at KSR, medium custody, eligible for parole in November. You are currently serving a life sentence for murder, violent crime, 3 counts, criminal attempt at murder, 5 counts, and burglary 1st degree. You have served approximately 24 years and 9 months. You have 180 days of meritorious good time loss, no prior paroles, and no pending detainers. Does all of that information sound accurate, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Carneal, we'll start the hearing with you telling us, how have you prepared for today?
I've had 25 years to prepare for today, and it still doesn't seem like it's happening. I've been talking to my parents a lot about it. I talked to my sister. I recently reconnected with my sister, and I've been having open discussions with her about it. And you know, I've had a social worker with the DDA that's helped me get everything together. And I've recently enrolled in some program, and I did that. And you know, I'm doing the best I can for this parole hearing, putting my best foot forward.
All right, sir, you've had about 25 years to prepare. What does that plan look like?
Well, I plan on living with my parents And I would like to be independent from them after a couple of years. I realized that there's a lot of things I would have to do to get there, but that would be my plan. And they have said that they would help me get to parole appointments, doctor appointments, anything that I need. I would plan on getting a job. I'm not really particular about what kind of job I would have. I mean, fast food, anything would be suitable for me. You know, I mean, like I have jobs in here that I've maintained and sanitation type jobs, and I could do that. Could do that, you know, for the long term. Anything really, as far as employment goes.
I will acknowledge for the record that we have received a few letters of support on your behalf, as well as a plan submitted by your legal counsel. But I think what's most important is that the board would have received a letter or a plan from you. Is there any particular reason that you didn't submit anything to the board?
No, not particularly. I thought everything had been covered in the plan and my parents and my family's letters.
Well, Mr. Carneal, what I'm getting at is that it's important for us to know that you have support on the outside. But what's most important is for you to share with the board why or how you will avoid making a same or similar decision that you made that brought you into the institution. And no plan from anyone else can articulate that better than the person himself.
Yes.
And we did not receive that. And I'm not sure that in 25 years that you've provided us at this point with the real in-depth plan. You're telling us what your parents are going to do. You're telling us what your attorney, your caseworker has submitted. But we need to know, most importantly, what you will do to avoid from making the same decision that you made that brought you into this institution. So I'll give you a moment and see if you can come up with something to share with us.
I think one of the most crucial parts would be maintaining mental health care and counseling. I've learned over the years to accept that help when it's offered, and sometimes I need to seek it out. And I think that'd be very important in this situation. If it were to happen, that I would need to maintain some sort of mental health care. That would be very beneficial to me.
Okay. So in regards to your mental health care, do you have a specific diagnosis?
I've received multiple ones over the years. It's gotten to the situation where I don't really pay attention to that. I just discuss with the doctors what I'm experiencing and what I'm feeling, and what I get back from them is what I listen to. I don't really pay attention to the diagnosis as much because different doctors have said different things over the years.
Do you believe your mental health played a part in the crimes that you committed?
Yes, I do.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, I was experiencing, I was hearing things, and I was extremely hyper suspicious, and I had felt for years feeling alienated and different. And I think that when I started to develop mental health problems, that it fed into that, and it kind of it made my mental health problems worse. That I had spent those years feeling like that, and it got to the point where I was hearing things in my mind to do certain things, and I was doing them. I wasn't strong enough, or I wasn't thinking properly enough to evaluate what I was being told to do, and I just found myself doing that.
So tell me what you were being told to do, if you can recall.
All different things. I think one of the first things I remember was I had a pistol that I had gotten out of a lockbox in my father's closet, and I had it, and I was looking at it, and I heard in my head to shoot myself, and I was holding it to my head, and then I put it in my mouth, and I put it to my head, and I didn't do it for some reason. I don't know why, but that was one instance where I didn't do what I was hearing to do. And to me, that shows that at any point in time, I should have been able to not do what I was hearing to do. Because in that instance, I didn't. So in my mind, I think now, maybe any time that happened, I should have been able to not do it.
Were voices telling you to do something on December the 1st, 1997?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did they tell you to do?
Pick up the gun out of the backpack and hold it in front of me and shoot. There's no justification or excuse for what I did. I'm offering an explanation. I realize that there's no excuse for what I did. I'm just trying to explain it.
So if we fast forward from that day till today, are you still having hearing voices that tell you to do things?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what kind of things are they telling you to do?
Different things. Sometimes it's just like to scream. Sometimes it's something that would seem silly to me, and most of the time it's things that like hurt myself or something like that. And I know now that that's not something that I should do, and I'm able to not do it and rationalize that it's not something that I should do, and what I'm hearing is not real. But on like a subconscious level, it is something that is inside my mind. This is produced by my mind. And that's troubling to me, that anything that I've heard at any point in my life was part of me. These terrible things is something that came from me.
Mr. Carneal, when was the last time that you heard one of these voices that told you to do something harmful?
A couple of days ago.
And do you recall what that voice told you to do?
Jump off the stairs, jump down the stairs.
All right. Mr. Carneal, if I am recalling the things that you have shared with me this morning as it pertains solely to your mental health, you state that you were hearing voices prior to December 1st, 1997. On that date, you heard a voice and it told you to commit the crimes that you committed. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And if we fast forward 25 years, just as recent as 2 days ago, you're saying voices are still telling you to do harmful things.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. So as the parole board, our number one charge is to maintain public safety. Do you think that in the condition or the state that you were in mentally that contributed to, as you state, the crimes that you committed 25 years ago, do you think the board would be maintaining public safety if we released you on parole today?
I have only one instance of violence in my institutional record, and I'm able now to rationalize what I am thinking and what I'm experiencing, and I have the help of counselors and family and people I can talk to. And it's not something I have acted on in very long time, decade.
Now, you still have not answered my question. Do you think that it would be in the best interest of the Commonwealth if the parole board gave you an opportunity of parole today, considering the things that you've shared with us today regarding your mental health?
I think I can do a lot of good out there. I think I can benefit the Commonwealth. I think I can benefit people as a whole. So
is that a yes, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you've been incarcerated 25 years. I'm sure that you've had lots of opportunities to complete programs. But before we move to that, it's important to note, I know you said that you don't pay attention to your mental health, but it is of your record that even with the medical attention that you've received, that you are still experiencing paranoid thoughts with violent visual imagery. Are you aware of that notation?
No, ma'am.
Are you still having violent visual imagery?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay. All right. We'll move past that. Let's talk about the programs you've completed in the last 25 years.
Oh, you want me to? Okay. When I was in juvenile custody, I completed the residential program there, and I got to a graduation phase, and I had a setback where I was reduced a level, but then I was able to get the level back to graduation phase. And then when I came to adult corrections, I completed the correctional psychiatric treatment unit program when I got here, and they had different wings. I was in the B wing program, and I completed that. And when I was in juvenile custody, I also got my GED. But then once I got out of the correctional psychiatric treatment unit and came to the general population, I was able to enroll in college classes, and I took some of those for quite a while, and I need just a couple of classes to get an associate's degree, and the program was eliminated. So I wasn't able to finish that. And I've done anger management as well recently.
All right. And with regards to anger management, it looks like when looking over your disciplinary violations, though you have had quite a bit of time of clear conduct, there was a stretch of time where you got into a few fights. Can you explain that?
Well, my cell had been robbed. I thought, well, an officer had let the inmates in to steal some of my stuff. He later admitted to it, the officer did. And I thought that I knew who had done it, and I confronted them instead of letting the officials handle what had happened. I took it upon myself, which I shouldn't have done, to confront these inmates, and a fight happened. And fights happened. And I got hit in the head with a hot pot, and it was a bad situation.
And I will note that you have, let's see, about 9 years of clear conduct. How have you managed to avoid confrontation in those 9 years?
I mainly keep to myself. I associate with a small amount of people, and I kind of take pride in the fact that I don't get caught up in the what people call prison politics. You know, the drama that goes on amongst different individuals. I don't get involved in it. I kind of, you know, some people say that I'm scared, or whatever the situation may be, I'm scared to join other people, but in all reality, I'm just trying to stay out of trouble and do what I need to do for my interest. And I just naturally don't want to break the rules. It's not because I'm trying to maintain clear conduct exactly. It's just something that I don't like doing. It maintains order and keeps everything flowing the way it's supposed to.
Have you ever been discharged from a program since you've been participating?
Not that I can remember.
And the world is much different than it was when you were 14 years old. Obviously, you are an adult, 39 years old. Are there any programs that you believe the Department of Corrections could offer you to help you be successful in the event that you are given an opportunity of parole?
Well, the reentry coordinators help a lot of people with situations like that. I'm not aware of any program specifically that would benefit someone in that situation, but you know, after being in so long, having to acclimate to the world outside of prison, I'm not aware of any program that would benefit that, not that I'm aware of.
All right, so, and again, you have been incarcerated for 25 years, so the world is much different. What do you think it's going to take for you to be successful on the outside?
Family support and trust. I have to trust people that they have my best interest in mind when they're helping me, which is something I'm able to do now. And it's one of those things that would take time, from what I understand.
This kind of circles us back around to your mental health. And I know you specifically stated that you don't pay attention because you've had several different diagnoses over the year. Am I recalling that correctly?
Well, I don't pay attention to the diagnoses exactly. I pay attention to my mental health, but not the exact label for what that is.
Do you pay attention to the treatment options?
Yes.
And what are those treatment options?
I see a psychologist and a psychiatrist. I see the psychiatrist every 3 months, and I see the psychologist every 3 months when there's one on staff. There's been periods of time throughout the years where they've not had one that was able to do regular therapy for people, but I talk to them as I'm allowed to, and I take advantage of all the help they offer me.
Are you on medications currently?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall how many meds you take?
I take 3 psych meds and 1 med for blood pressure. That's from the medical doctor.
Will you have access to those psych meds? You're given the opportunity of parole?
Yes. They when you get out, they give you so many days supply of medicine, so it would enable me the chance to see a provider of some sort, psychiatrist or nurse practitioner or someone that is able to write the prescription, and I would see them regularly too.
Is it your intent to continue your psychiatric and medications and treatment if you are given the opportunity of parole?
Oh, definitely. I've followed with that ever since I started the medicine and seeing psychologists. I followed through with that over the years. The whole time I find that to be very beneficial.
Have any of those voices that you hear ever told you not to take your meds?
No.
All right, sir, at this time, we are going to discuss the reason that brings you before us today, and that is your crimes of murder, criminal attempted murder, that's 3 counts of the murder, 5 counts of criminal attempted murder, and burglary first degree. Tell me about those crimes.
Well, the burglary happened several days before the shooting happened. And the burglary was, I think it was a Thursday, and I went into a neighbor's garage and took some guns and some bullets and put them in a bag and carried them back to the house.
Why did you do that?
I didn't know exactly at the time what was going to happen, but I mean, I was hearing in my head to do certain things, but I should have known, you know, anytime you steal guns is wrong, and anytime you do anything with them, you know, when you're 14, anything you do with a gun is not good. I wouldn't think so. And I should have known that it was going to lead to something terrible. I should have known that at the time.
So you took those guns on a Thursday?
Yes.
Prior to December the 1st?
Yes.
All right, keep going.
The shooting happened Monday, December 1st, and I had the guns and I took them into the school, and people were asking me what it was because they were wrapped in a blanket, and I told them it was an English project, and everyone seemed to accept that as an answer. So I got to the lobby and I set them down, the guns, and I took off my backpack that had a gun and ammunition in it. And I just kind of stood around for a while, just kind of standing there. And then I went and got the gun out of the backpack and I held it in front of me. And I don't remember firing the gun or how many times I fired it. But the next thing I remember is people laying on the ground, and there was another student that came from behind like a brick column, and he asked me what I was doing. I don't remember what the verbal exchange was, but he was approaching me as we were talking, and I seem to remember telling him to kill me. I'm not sure if that's the exact words, but the principal came out and got me and took me back to the offices, and they put me in the room with, I don't know who he was a staff member that worked there, and he was asking me, he asked me some questions. I don't remember exactly what they were, but they just seemed odd to me at the time. They just seemed kind of random, and I waited for the police to show up.
Mr. Carneal, who is Nicole?
She was a friend. She's one of my victims that had been killed.
Can you repeat that?
She was one of my friends, and she's dead now. I killed her.
Who was Holland?
He lived around the corner from me. I would, now looking back, I would consider him a friend. He's also one of my victims.
Missy?
She was I think a grade ahead of me, and I knew her pretty well too. She's one of my victims.
Casey?
She's one of my victims. We were in band together, and she offered me a seat next to her on the bus. I'll never forget it. Nobody would let me sit with them, and she let me sit. We were all going on a trip, and she said, "You can sit here." I'll never forget that.
Jessica?
She's one of my victims. She was older than me by 3 or 4 years, I think. she was older, but she was also in the band, and she was always like a leader, a positive leader in the band. She was always helping the younger people out.
Kelly?
She was one of my victims as well. She was friends with Melissa Jenkins, one of my other victims, and they were hanging out together a lot.
Jessica?
She was one of my victims. Yeah.
Is there any particular reason that you shot these people?
Nothing. No, it's not justified. Not justified at all. There's no excuse for it at all. And the reason it happened, is like a combination of factors in my life. And when I look at it now, it's because I was a coward.
Tell me what those factors are that you're referring to.
My mental health at the time, my age, and my maturity level wasn't.
Tell me what your age had to do with that.
I was 14 at the time, and I had not experienced anything in life, really. I didn't know exactly the effect of what I would do eventually. I didn't know what that would actually mean. I didn't know the hurt and the pain it would cause people. I was ignorant to that.
So, Mr. Carneal, I am assuming, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, that you are an intelligent being at 39, and if I had to guess, also at the age of 14. Is that correct?
I don't know about intelligent. I function, yes.
Okay, so we'll go with functioning. Are you telling the board today that at 14 years old, you did not know if you killed several people, you didn't know that it would cause harm or hurt? Is that what you're telling us today?
I didn't realize the extent of the emotional pain it would cause people. It didn't seem as real to me then as it does now, because now I realize I'm able to see it, and I know the terrible.
Mr. Carneal, we're talking specifically about when you were 14.
Right.
Are you telling us that you did not know right from wrong at 14?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay. So the answer would be yes, I did know right from wrong. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you know that if you walked in a school and fired a handgun at multiple people and killed them, that was wrong?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Your PSI, your official record, tells us that initially, one of the comments that you stated, and give me just a moment so I can quote it accurately. You had taken those weapons to school several days before the incident. Is that correct?
No. With a handgun, I had taken to school several days before the incident, not all the weapons.
And why did you do that?
I was showing it off to people. I thought it was interesting, and I thought it was just something that people thought would be cool to show off.
And did people think that was cool?
I don't know.
Did you plan these events?
To some degree, yes.
Tell me about that.
It had been a long time thing where I had thought about what it would be like to be in the school and just nobody would be there. It would just run around, and I don't know. I thought about what it'd be like being in the mall with nobody else there and situations like that. And it just kind of developed into the idea of what it would be like if people were not there because of something I did. I don't know exactly. I didn't think exactly about like shooting people and killing them. It was just something originally. It was just something that I thought I would do something and everybody would leave the school and I would just run around.
So do you think that those thoughts were a result of a 14-year-old mischievous mind, or were these thoughts as a result of your mental health?
I think it started out as a mischievous mind and it developed into more than that, something a lot worse than that.
All right, and if we fast forward from what you just said back to today, when we speak of your mental health and your prognosis is listed as poor, and further states, and I will repeat, that though you have been receiving mental health services for many years, you still experience paranoid thoughts with violent visual imagery. So how could the board be certain that when you have these thoughts with the violent imagery that you state you still have, how can we be certain that you will not act on those?
I haven't acted on them in decades, and that's a start. That's just a start. I would hope that the parole board could see that I plan on continuing that and doing something positive in the long run with my life.
Mr. Carneal, do you believe you deserve an opportunity of parole today?
I don't know that, honestly. I mean, it depends on when you ask me. Sometimes I think, that I would just deserve to be killed. Sometimes I think that, honestly. And then other times I think that due to the fact that I could do some good for a lot of people, maybe, that it would be beneficial if I were released someday.
Well, and I've heard you mention that you could do some good for people. I think you said that a couple of times today. Can you expound on that?
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be something grand, just every little thing you do affects a person, and it could be something positive, just like, listening to somebody when they have a problem or helping them carry something, or it could be, it starts out small on a daily basis. And I think I can build upon that. And I would like to do something in the future that would contribute to the society as a whole.
All right, sir, I believe those are all the questions that I have for you at this time. I'll see if my colleague, Mr. Larry Brock, has any questions or comments for you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Mr. Carneal, I do have a few questions, and I'll try to make sure I don't cover any of the territory that Ms. Jones covered. But I'd like to ask you a few more questions about the actual crimes that were committed and what led up to it. And the first thing I'd like to know is what kind of relationship did you have with your parents and sister about the time all this happened?
They never did anything to me to make me feel bad. I grew up in a very good home. Dad was just regular hours. We ate dinner together. It was a good home life. But towards closer to the commission of the crime, things kind of deteriorated with me and the way I trusted my parents and my sister and the way I thought something would happen to them. And I would say at the time of the crime, they weren't aware that I was having any difficulties at all, I don't think. But I look back on it now, and I think they did everything they could. They were loving and supportive of me in every way they could be, even my parents and my sister.
So any issues you had or you thought you had were based on your behavior? I mean, they were positive in your life, your parents and your sister.
Yes, sir, definitely.
All right. Now, you talked a little bit about the guns that you had, that you brought into the school, and, you know, the handgun that was in the backpack and some long guns that were wrapped in a blanket or a sheet or something, correct?
Yes, sir.
So it leads me to the question of, you had a handgun in your backpack that you used. What was the purpose of the other firearms?
I took them simply because I had them. It wasn't, I've heard over the past years, people think that there was other students or other people involved in the crime. There was not. That's not why there were other guns. I just took them because I had them.
Well, didn't you tell the authorities at some point when they talked to you after all this happened that you and some others had a plan to take over the school?
I believe I did say that, yes, sir.
Well, what can you tell us about that?
I was being questioned by the police several times over different days, and they kept asking questions about other people possibly being involved in it. And I felt like, I thought the police were trying to help me and that they were actually my friends, just the way they were behaving towards me. And I told them that because I thought that's what they wanted to hear. I thought that that's what they wanted to hear, that it wasn't true at all.
Well, I think, you know, if you brought other guns into the school, I mean, that could lead to maybe the suspicion that others were going to be involved and opted not to participate. So I can see why the police may have reached that, you know, or had that question.
Oh, I understand. I understand the question completely. Yes, sir.
But you're saying that, well, let me ask you this then. Did anyone in particular, well, let me back up. So you never, are you saying you never had any discussions with any of your friends about anything to do with taking over the school or a shooting or anything?
No, sir.
No one knew what was going to happen?
No, sir.
Had you ever used firearms before, shot firearms, target practice, any of that?
I did at camp, summer camp. I went to 4-H camp, and they had some kind of little rifles we did target practice with. And there was after I stole the guns, I had taken some of them to a friend's house, and we went in his backyard, and I shot. So there's like a ball in the backyard, and we shot at that.
So you're 14 years old. I mean, how did you learn to operate these firearms? I mean, it's just not something that's innate. You don't know that naturally. How did you learn to operate the firearms?
I guess TV. I don't know exactly. I mean, it was just one of those. I mean, I just looked at it and kind of figured it out. I mean, you know, they almost any movie you watch almost anymore, there's a gun in it. That was one of the things that I had seen.
So I think you said you shot some with a friend. Did you shoot at anything in particular? Any kind of targets?
No, there was a ball in the backyard that he had been sitting in his backyard, and we just shot it in.
So, Mr. Carneal, who were your intended targets when you started this shooting?
There were no intended targets. I mean, when I was looking around, when I was standing there, I didn't know specifically who was there. I just knew there was people standing there. I didn't know who it was.
So you were familiar with the prayer group, were you not?
I was familiar that they met there in the mornings, yes, sir. I didn't know exactly when it was that it took place, and that was not they were not targeted at all. That was not what was going on.
So don't you think it seems kind of odd that the vast majority of the ones injured or killed were in that group?
I mean, I can see how people would think that I was targeting them, just the way the events happened, but that's not what was going on.
And the shotguns you brought in, where did they come from?
Those came from my dad's closet. He had them up on a shelf in some kind of container thing, and I had took those.
Were the other guns loaded that you brought in?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
So on the day this happened, how long were you in the lobby before the shooting started?
I had been standing there. I'm not sure about the time. Maybe I would guess 10 minutes. Maybe I was just kind of standing around.
Were you talking to your friends?
I believe so. Yes, yes. There were other people there that I normally talk to in the mornings. They were there. I'm pretty sure I was talking to them.
So you mentioned to Miss Jones, I think, particularly about the bus, that there apparently you had some issues with some kids, but it would be fair to say, wouldn't it, that you had friends at the school?
I see that now. Yes, I do. I do. Yes, sir.
I mean, didn't you have a group of friends that you talked to and that you hung around with?
At the time, I didn't see that, but now that I look back, I realized that there were a lot of people that supported me and helped me and were friends with me that I took for granted, and I didn't realize that because of my perception of how I was being treated.
Just bear with me a second, Mr. Carneal. I'm just looking through some information here. Mr. Carneal, how old were you when you knew that you couldn't kill someone?
Knew that I could, like,
You could not? How old were you when you knew you couldn't kill someone?
oh, did I know that it was wrong?
Well, I think there's a point in time that most of us know that it's wrong to kill someone. I'm asking you,
Yeah.
you know, at what point in your life did you figure that out?
Oh, young? I don't know exactly, very young.
So you knew that was wrong before you went into the school, did you not?
Yes, sir.
Good, thank you. What do you think the community perception of you is, Mr. Carneal?
That I'm a monster. I believe that's what people think of me.
Can you blame them for that?
No,
Considering
no.
that?
No, I understand that sentiment. Yes, sir. I understand why people would think that.
Do you have any sense of the damage you've caused to these families that were involved and how this affects their life and how it's affected their life since this shooting occurred?
I met with Melissa Jenkins in the past, and she explained a lot of that to me, and it's something that I can't even imagine the way that I have made all these people, not just the victims and the victims' family and friends, but also the community, the destruction I've caused in their life.
You understand this is something that never goes away for them?
Yes, sir, I understand that.
So you're in prison, but in a lot of ways, they're in a prison of their own. You ever think of that?
Yes, sir, I think of that often.
Mr. Carneal, have you ever provided items to anyone to put online for sale?
No one that I knew they were going to do it. I occasionally get letters from people that I don't know, and I respond to it. And people have different motivations for writing. And apparently, I learned later on after I failed to this, that people were writing me and lying about everything. Everything they told me was a lie. And then when I would write them, they were selling the letters and the envelopes. And there was even someone that wrote me from Paducah that told me their son was being bullied and they wanted advice on what to tell their son. And I wrote back a letter trying to help them with the situation, and I found out that was sold. I mean, I don't know. I've never benefited from it. I've never profited from it. These dealers who do this stuff, I guess they're called, I don't approve of that because it's all, they lie about it.
So if that happened, you say it was because you were misled by?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, Mr. Carneal, I think some would probably argue that your actions, what you did that day, set the stage for, all the school shootings that have followed in the modern era. What's your thought on that?
even today, when these things happen, I feel responsible for them on some level. When I was initially arrested, for about a year after that, I wasn't in a situation where I had media access. So I didn't realize a lot of this stuff was going on. And then in '99, when I was sent to the Northern Kentucky Youth Development Center, there was a little bit more newspaper and magazine access. And that's when Columbine happened. And that I really feel responsible for that. That's when I became suicidal, when I attempted to hurt myself, and I had to be sent to a hospital because of that.
Mr. Carneal, if someone had gunned down your parents and your sister like you did to these folks, what would you want the parole board to do?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, it depends on what they had done with their lives, honestly. You know, I mean, some people come to prison and they continue that pattern of behavior, and that's not somebody that I would want released. But somebody that did that and showed that they could do something different and positive with their life, I might advocate for that. I don't know, honestly, I don't know.
And you identified a number of the folks in the prayer group as your friends, right?
Yes, sir.
But yet you shot them. I mean, some of them witnessed you shooting them.
Yes, sir.
So you haven't, well, let me back that up and ask you this. I think you said there were some people who didn't treat you very well.
I perceived it that way. I don't know. Looking back on it, I don't think it was really happening the way I perceived it to be.
Okay. But, well, you thought some people were perhaps not treating you very well. That was your perception. But you also said the people in this prayer group, they were friends of yours.
Yes, sir.
So had any of those people treated you bad in your perception?
No, not at all.
So why would you target your friends as opposed to someone maybe that you had the perception that treated you poorly?
I wasn't targeting anybody. No one was targeted. It was just a crowd of people that was there, and I was there. It was in the lobby. No one was targeted.
Was it timed in a certain way?
No, it was just that morning, first thing in the morning. That's why it happened then, I guess, yeah.
Because the record seems to indicate that the shooting started right as the prayer group was ending, right as they offered an amen at the end of their session they had.
I've heard that through the media before, but I don't know if that's correct or not. I don't know.
So that didn't play any role in what you did?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Carneal, I believe that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Mr. Carneal, I just have a couple more questions for you. We return to thinking of your victims. How many victims did you have that day?
8.
8. Can you name them?
Casey, Nicole, Jessica, Craig, Holland, Melissa, I called her Missy, Kelly, and Shelly.
Okay. And of those 8, I believe when I called them off earlier, I may have inadvertently left off Craig.
Yeah.
Of those 8, was Craig or any of the others, or how many of the others were your friends?
Well, Nicole was a very good friend. I consider her a very good friend. You know, looking back on things I do. And some of them I knew more than others. The ones that were in higher grades above me, I didn't know as well, but I still knew them. I mean, it's a small school, and a lot of these people were in band with me. And I knew all of them. Yes, I've been to several of them's birthday parties. You know, I have memories with different ones at different times, and none of them do I have any negative memories with. I knew them all.
Okay, so sitting there 25 years later, and you're solely thinking of your victims, specifically the ones that you are calling your close friends, how does that make you feel that you took the life or injured those 8, specifically those that are your friends?
It makes me feel terrible that I hurt anybody. I mean, my friends or not my friends or anybody, you know, I mean, it makes me feel terrible that I did that to anybody at all.
And Mr. Carneal, I will stand corrected when I tell you, I know you answered and said you had 8 victims. You have 8 people that you, 3 that you killed and 4 that you injured, or 5. But you actually have victimized an entire school.
A whole community.
Students, teachers, bus drivers, counselors, janitors, with your actions that day.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't believe that you've offered much of a reason behind it that would support your thoughts on that day and 25 years later. Before we conclude this portion of the hearing, do you believe that you've had adequate opportunity today to express your desire for parole?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Is there anything else that you wish to share with the board before Mr. Brock and myself go off camera to deliberate?
I would like to say to you and to the victims and the victims' friends and families and the whole community that I'm sorry for what I did. I know it's not going to change anything. It's not going to make anything better, but I want them to know that I am sorry for what I did.
All right, sir, if you'll just keep your seat, Mr. Brock and myself will go off camera for just a moment to deliberate, and we'll be back with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Carneal, after deliberating, the board is unable to reach a unanimous decision at this time. The board will take your case back to the full board that will convene on Monday, September the 26th. And you will, the board will then consider your hearing and all the information that you have provided and make a decision at that time.
Yeah.
Good luck to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
In the matter of Michael Carneal, DOC number 151127, the board has duly deliberated. Mr. Brock, in the initial hearing on September the 20th, you entered a vote of a serve out. Is that still your vote for today?
Yes, it is.
Ms. Brown, how do you vote?
Serve out.
Ms. Hardesty, how do you vote today?
Serve out.
Mr. James, how do you vote?
Serve out.
Ms. Lathan, how do you vote?
Serve out.
Mr. Helbig, how do you vote?
Serve out.
As chair, I entered my vote on September the 20th as well as a serve out. It will remain the same today. Mr. Carneal, can you see and hear us okay?
Yes.
After deliberating, Mr. Carneal, due to the seriousness of your crime involved a weapon, you had lives taken, and the seriousness, again, it is the decision of the parole board today to allow you to serve out the remainder of your sentence. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
This concludes all matters pertaining to Michael Carneal. The parole board will not conduct any media interviews today. A written statement on behalf of the board has been prepared. If you would like to receive a copy of that written statement, you may email Morgan Hall at morgan.hall@ky.gov. Thank you. We will continue proceeding with the rest of our docket.
Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to like and subscribe on your way out, and feel free to leave a comment. Have a blessed day.